Hello and welcome to Leaflet Educational Research Made Approachable. Today we're looking at an article titled Closed Schools, Open Markets, a Hotspot Spatial Analysis of School Closures and Charter Openings in Detroit. This study comes from AERA Open, the April to June 2019 issue, Volume 5, Number 2, pages 1 through 114. I meant to say 1 through 14, not 1 through 114. It's not quite that long. That would be extensive, and the episode would be much too long for anybody with a reasonable schedule to listen to it. So, if you would like to read this article yourself, the link, as always, will be in the description below, off to the left, the right, inside, outside, wherever the heck that thing is. Let's jump right into it. The purpose of this research is to map the spatial distribution of public school closures and the opening of charter schools in Detroit, as the title suggests, in order to address the following question. How might these spatial patterns cluster to create hotspots of public school closures and or charter school openings? Understanding spatial patterns of public school closures and charter school openings can help communities and leaders manage both well. Detroit has the second largest charter school market in the nation, the state being near bankruptcy, possibly due to neoliberal policy shifts which rationalize the destruction of public institutions and the promotion of private market principles in all sectors. Proponents of such policies often consider public school closures a positive tool of reform. In contrast, evidence shows that school closures do not result in significant savings, especially for districts in major cities. The authors of this study understand neoliberalism as, quote, a facet of a racist society that works to both reinforce the racial structure of society while also modifying the process of racialization, unquote. This perspective is, in my opinion, fundamentally flawed. The racial consequences of neoliberal policies are real and significant, but are not the result of explicit racism. Rather, it must be understood that without intentional regulation or intervention, natural systems of human organization pull resources near the top of social and economic hierarchies, regardless of racial context. Detroit, specifically, has for years been characterized by residential segregation and racism, but this says nothing about neoliberal market-driven policy as a broader philosophy. The neoliberal market-driven perspective has largely trickled down from federal education policies in the United States, which punish schools for underperformance and consider the closing of failing public schools and the subsequent opening of charter schools a reasonable answer to academically struggling districts and communities. However, the majority of students in urban areas who experience a school closure also experience decreased long-term academic performance. This is partly because, ironically, many students are forced to migrate to an even lower performing public school in the area. This study is contextualized by three education policies that arguably helped shape the current conditions in Detroit schools. 1. Milliken v. Bradley, in which desegregation cases were linked to school closures and school integration plans were canceled, with schools left to community control, resulting in further racial segregation. 2. Prop A, which repealed property taxes as the primary funding source for K-12 education in Michigan and incentivized participation in interdistrict and charter school enrollments because school funding was no longer linked to property in the district, but now to the number of students enrolled in the school. Public school closures increased in following, as did the opening of for-profit charter schools. And 3. EM. In struggling districts, complete control is now given to a, quote, emergency financial manager, unquote, with little to no oversight from locally elected or appointed officials or community members. Findings in this research suggest that charter school openings tend to cluster more than the closing of public schools in Detroit. The rollback of public schools in Detroit occurs with geospatial randomness, while the rollout of charter schools tends to occur in geospatial hotspots. I am curious as to whether this claim can be used to understand the functional intricacies of neoliberal policies at large, and I want to know if you are too. Let us know in the comments wherever the heck those are. Like I said, if you want to read this research for yourself, a link will be in the description forever and always. Have a wonderful day. Never stop learning.